Okay, let's get started again. We okay? All right, one of the last things I said was that marketing has to interact with a lot of different constituencies within the company. And the problem that presents is at the seams. In other words, where marketing begins to communicate with finance, where finance communicates with marketing, that's where we have the communication breakdowns. And much of that has to do with the fact that traditionally marketing speaks a different language. They talk differently, they think differently, they look at different kinds of things. And much of that has to do with marketing is the only function in the organization that brings in money. All the other functions spend money, expenses as opposed to revenue. Well, if we can consider these blurring seams, and by that I mean now even the differentiation between marketing and finance has broken down. McKinsey wrote the article this past year that I've been waiting for 15 years. The title was, "We're all marketers now." It demonstrated that marketing is not one of those functional areas in the organization. It's the most important functional area. And I know some of you are from other areas in the company. And I'm sorry, but marketing takes precedence now. Not just in my opinion, well, certainly in my opinion, but in the opinion of many others as well. So, these tasks are moving from one function to another. We're going to take a look at a little mini case study in a couple of minutes, and I'll give you an example. So, what does that mean? Well, the best companies, the cutting-edge marketing companies, are actually creating a very different kind of an organization. What I'm talking about tonight is not just a mindset, but it's rather a different kind of a functional marketing organization. It's a fundamental shift in the way companies market their products. They're much less siloed. And by that I mean the different functions in the organization are no longer these self-standing silos of turf. Also, they're much more interactive. It's no longer just get together when there's a problem or a meeting, communicate on a regular basis. They're much more collaborative. Now departments in the organization have to function with marketing as opposed to by themselves. And also what it does is, of course, it increases marketing's value and its effectiveness. Effectiveness doing what? Satisfying customers. 26% of companies have a well-developed strategy in place for improving customer experience. Now you might argue, maybe all companies don't need to improve customer experience. Well, most companies would suggest that they do. They're always looking for ways to improve. And by the way, this isn't Forbes magazine saying, you're not ready, you're not ready, you're not ready. This is a scientific study of chief marketing officers of companies. The companies themselves are saying they're not ready. They do not have a well-developed strategy in place. I'll give you a little case example here. This is from the Harvard Business Review. Again, just very recently, July 17, 2014. How big data brings marketing and finance together. This is the CMO, the Chief Marketing Officer for MasterCard Worldwide. This is a big dog. This is a big, important marketing position. Raja Manar, an Indian-American guy, became the CMO, Chief Marketing Officer, MasterCard Worldwide last year in 2013. He's a big data, marketing analytics, digital marketing guy. He moved quickly to transform how they measured marketing. We had a couple of conversations during the break about how do you measure marketing and how do you measure advertising effectiveness? Well, Raja Manar is an expert at measuring. He used big data analytics, WDTM. What does that mean? That means he was able to tap into this extraordinary amount of data that MasterCard has on its consumers. They have a stunning database. They just didn't do much with it. What he did was he brought finance and marketing together. Now, if you look at marketing and finance as standalone departments, as most companies do, marketing focuses on maximizing transactions. In the business of credit cards, what are we talking about? Zing, swipes. Marketing wants to maximize the transactions. In other words, they're flogging sales. Most of you that work in marketing are charged with the responsibility of selling more stuff. Finance understands that not all swipes are equal. Finance understands the implications of benefits and costs, of return on investment and such. Marketing wants to measure the impact of long-term branding efforts. In other words, marketing is interested from a promotional standpoint on creating brand equity. Finance, on the other hand, and I'm sure this strikes home to many of you in the finance area, they want to know more about interest rates, employment levels, inflation, retail sales, all those numbers kinds of things that are associated with finance. Well, in the credit card business, the most important consideration is the deal with the issuing bank. The deal that the credit card company has with the bank that issues the credit cards. So combining marketing and finance gave them a better picture of what was driving the marketing performance. In other words, looking at it from the standpoint of maximizing revenue. Let's focus on these swipes and let's not focus on these swipes. Let's focus on our relationship with this bank. Don't worry about our relationship with that bank. Much like I'm not going to worry about my relationship with TD Bank when I get back to Boston. So, what does it do? It says to MasterCard worldwide, we've got a better handle on maximizing revenue, building brand equity, satisfying our customers, and being profitable because we've got two departments working together that traditionally have not worked together. As such, we now are in a position to be able to say, wow, more collaboration, less silos. Because traditionally in organizations, certainly most organizations I've been associated with, marketing hates finance, and finance hates marketing. Now all of a sudden we've got MasterCard saying these two guys are best buddies. I don't want to turn this into a history class, and we probably leave, but there are a couple of things I want to mention very quickly, just to demonstrate in 3 minutes where we've come from and where we are. This stuff all started back in the 1930s and 40s, but not much happened then. It was just that emphasis or that impetus to get the ball rolling. What really kicked in was the 1970s. Because we had this combination of two of the most important people maybe the world has ever known, Bill Gates and Steve Jobs. These two were sitting in universities on opposite ends of the United States the same year, freshmen in college, and they were both saying to each other, they didn't know each other, but they were both saying, we got to get out of here, there's stuff to do. We can't stay around here. That's when this whole thing took off, with Microsoft and with Apple. Now, what really kicked it into gear again was IBM, after making one of the most monumental digital mistakes in the history of mistakes, they decided not to pursue personal computers. They said to Apple, we don't ever see a situation where a family would need to have a computer. We've got 120 people in this room. I bet you we have 250 computers in this room right now. 250. Well, IBM in 1981 said, we're going to go after this now. We were wrong. And then the game started. And boy, did it progress quickly. Despite the fact that email has been around since 1974, it wasn't used very much until 1993, 1994. That's when email really kicked in and we began doing the things that we do now. You can see that in 1993, there were 600,000 internet users, 600,000 web users, mostly using Netscape. That number has increased a little bit. By 2013, there were 2 billion. Keep in mind, there are only about 7 billion people on the planet, but last year we got 2 billion of them using the internet. The search engines kicked into gear. The search engines changed the way we behave. People use a search engine for everything now. Every 48 hours, Yahoo, which is the #2 search engine in the world, #1 in many countries, primarily Japan, they record 40 terabytes of data every 48 hours. I don't know what a terabyte is, but it's big. I do know what it is. It's unbelievably big. Now, when I say they record data about their users' online habits. Now, what do you do with a terabyte of data, much less 40 terabytes? Well, it becomes part of big data. And you can electronically partition the data to find out how people behave in certain situations. Now, between 2003 and this year, 2014, we're talking about 11 plus years there, the number of internet users just in China has increased from 68 million to 642 million. There are 642 million internet users in China. Now keep in mind, this is a country that has 700 million people living in the wilderness on $2 a day. They also have 642 million internet users. Shanghai, Beijing, Guangzhou, half of the people use the internet. The numbers are extraordinary. 47% of European adults, 136 million people, shopped online in 2013. That's somewhat impressive. It would be more impressive if I told you that almost all of them use the internet in purchases that they didn't make online. Global e-commerce, as you know it, as we know it, is B2B, B2C, and C2C. What we're seeing now in C2C, consumer to consumer, B2C is saying, well, that's good for us, we'll go with that. We were talking during the break about Ford launching a car on Facebook. Facebook was not designed to be B2C. Now it's, sorry, I think I just did that myself. So while B2B is the largest share of the internet economy and where much of the activity lies, remember, when you're talking about B2B, and many of you work in business-to-business marketing, B2B only exists because there are consumers out there. It's a derived demand from the consumers. I used Airbus as an example before. Airbus sells planes. They sell planes to people who hate planes. Airlines. Airlines don't like planes. They're expensive and they break and you have to replace them and they're hard to maintain. But Airbus understands the only reason someone would buy an Airbus A380 for $400 million is because people want to buy seats on that plane. So it's a derived demand. In any event, that's how global e-commerce is divided. I want to change directions and talk about brand building. Creating brand equity is one of the great keys in marketing, and brand building in the digital world is actually quite different than we traditionally have worked to build brands. If we must use the dirty word, in marketing, it's the dirty word, engagement. We don't like that. We don't like the idea of having to engage customers. I mentioned students negotiating grades and people going to buy a new automobile and they've got 14 different values from 14 different websites and they seem to know everything in the world. Well, that's what we're talking about when it comes to engagement. Most of you are familiar with that app. It was the most downloaded app in 100 countries in the world in June. Think about that for a second. There are only 200 countries in the world. It was the most downloaded app in 100 countries in June. Record-breaking downloads. This was the first World Cup that we celebrated as a monument to marketing in a digital world. The digital elements of this World Cup were so overwhelming that it was almost unbelievable for FIFA. The World Cup app, the biggest sports app ever, more than 18 million downloads first 2 weeks in June. Ad consumption of official World Cup content from the internet has reached 2.5 billion pages. That's how much content has been looked at. Look at the last bullet point. Fans spend an average of 54 minutes each consuming live, editorial, and social content within the World Cup app. 54 minutes? Imagine having a consumer for 54 minutes. In much of traditional marketing, you can't get them for 54 seconds. And with a traditional television place ad or magazine ad, you can't get them for 5.4 seconds. So people were spending extraordinary amounts of time. That's an average of 54 minutes. So by anyone's measure and anyone's standard, FIFA says this is a digital world. This is the way to go. Now, why this? And why now? Well, FIFA says, this is a press release from FIFA, the most engaging personal technology of the tournament was the app. It was the most engaging personal technology of the app. And what I said a few minutes ago, if we must use the dirty word engagement, and now FIFA is saying it was the most engaging personal technology. They didn't expect it, but they certainly ran with it. FIFA's Live and Social Hub. Many of you, I'm sure I certainly did, use the global stage. There was just something about it that just captivated us and pulled us in. Companies recognized it very quickly, and FIFA, which smelled money, was able to do an extraordinary amount of advertising, digital advertising, at the global stage. How about FIFA and Facebook? FIFA said as late as April of 2014 that they were not interested in pursuing Facebook as part of their digital strategy. They were going to go with the downloadable app. It was more in tune with their image and the image that they wanted to project. Well, by May, FIFA launched 3 Facebook pages. 3 Facebook pages from FIFA. Now again, remember I said earlier that Facebook is not just social media where people share information and show pictures of their incredibly average-looking children. But rather, it's where companies jump on board and do things that they traditionally have done through more standard types of marketing. 3 Facebook pages, expanding the organization's social media preference. There's one of them right there. The press release, official FIFA World Cup Facebook page. And of course, people liked it and affiliated with it and became friends with it and followed it and signed up and did all the things that we talk about digital marketing can do. Now, more peculiar to this particular group here, Costa Rica was the darling of the World Cup. And certainly FIFA did not expect that. Perhaps no one expected it other than perhaps Costa Rica. Look at some of the copy here. Costa Rica's national team was the revelation of the 2014 Brazil World Cup. This isn't the Costa Rica, this isn't the Tico Times talking. This is FIFA talking to the world. They're reporting on the World Cup. Costa Rica media outlets Wednesday cited an article posted on FIFA's website describing the national team as the surprise of the tournament. Certainly, Uruguay was a surprise to the world, maybe not to you. But the next one was one that had Americans saying, "What the hell?" The next one was Italy, as perhaps you remember. And as such, people were saying, "God, I like that team. I like those guys. They're these good-looking, young, magnificent guys from this small country, the underdog, 5 million people. Mexico City has 30 million people. Costa Rica has 5 million people." So all of a sudden, the ball started rolling. And as such, when Costa Rica played, the audiences were extraordinary on television and the media and the hits and what big data allows FIFA to do is to not just see who's on the website, who's on the app, but who's on Costa Rica. who's looking at the roster, who's looking at the team. It became just an absolutely amazing element. Certainly for you, but for us to see it in other parts of the world. Now, how does it translate into marketing? Well, and hopefully it will. I certainly hope and pray that Costa Rica won't miss this opportunity. The tourism board, the universities, all of those things associated with nation marketing and brand building. The revelation of the 2014 Brazil World Cup, according to the event organizer and World Football governing body, FIFA. This is a quote from FIFA. This was a press release. I'll let you look at it, then I'll read it quickly. Los Ticos won the hearts of foreign fans everywhere. Is that pretty good marketing? They won the hearts of foreign fans everywhere on the planet. So that becomes marketing gold. Even in defeat, they were stunningly gracious. Why? Because everybody hates the Dutch. Why? I don't know, but they do. The only people that we hate more in the United States than the Dutch are the Belgians. We hate the Belgians for some reason. I don't know why. But in any event, this is marketing gold. My son is going to vacation here with his wife and daughter in the fall. Why? Because I come here, I go everywhere in the world, as does he. He's coming here because of this. He liked what he saw. Not because he liked the team so much, he just liked the idea of it. So when these kinds of things happen, and they can't happen any other way, they don't happen any other way. The team has done well in previous World Cups. Perhaps not to the quarterfinals, but now all of a sudden it becomes instant, real-time, on-the-fly data. And if the Costa Rican Tourism Board is planning to take advantage of this at their October meeting, they're making a big mistake. It needs to happen very quickly. It was a great lesson in digital marketing for many parts of the world. Now, I mentioned experiential earlier, and I want to develop that now just for a couple of minutes. Marketing should be experiential. And by that I mean the customer should have the opportunity to experience the relationship it has with the product and with the company. People like to be able to experience it. Physical technology and emotional experiences build loyalty. Now, and by physical technology, I'm talking about that ability to go to the website and to log in and to get some kind of a welcome message and look at the preferences that you have and all of those other kinds of things. Facebook certainly understood that and developed it. Twitter certainly understands that, but now companies have to understand it as well. Give people the opportunity to have not only this physical technology-driven contact with the product, but also this idea of an emotional experience. Now, some of you sell industrial products that aren't supposed to be emotional, they're just supposed to work. But that can also be part of your strategy. Having that experience, having that ability to take care of customers. People buy from companies they like. That's it. They buy from companies they like. And if you can come up with an experiential way to make them like you more, you're going to win from that. It's an example. You may have heard of the learning theory of constructionism. Constructionism says that basically, what I hear, I forget. What I say, I remember. What I do, I understand. How do we apply that kind of cultural anthropology, perhaps, to marketing? Well, if we can give consumers an opportunity to engage with the company and the product, then they're much more likely to understand than if we just simply talk to them. Hopefully this is not a situation we've encountered. One of the problems with engagement and psychology and sociology and cultural anthropology We think of those areas as being very touchy-feely and good and nice, but no return on investment. A lot of activity, but not accomplishing anything. That's no longer true, and it's demonstrably no longer true now. Now that we can measure and use big data, now we can understand that doing these kinds of engaging things that digital marketing allows you to be able to do is going to have a direct impact on return on investment. Some of you may be familiar with Girl Power. The great P&G, Procter & Gamble, one of the most important consumer products companies in the world. They launched Girl Power, G-R-R-L. If you have not paid any attention to it, there's plenty of YouTubes and plenty of information on it. What they did was they put together a 3-minute and 30-second television commercial. And what it demonstrated was stereotypes associated with girls. Many of the negative stereotypes associated with girls. And it was the Always division of Procter & Gamble, a company that makes products for women. They used YouTube to launch it. You don't make 3-minute and 30-second television commercials. There are no 3-minute and 30-second television commercials outside of Thailand. Well, they launched it on YouTube. They had 35 million views in 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, 35 million people watched a 3.5-minute Procter & Gamble commercial designed to sell their products. How long would it take to get 35 million views on television? Costa Rica would take 35 years, but you couldn't do it. You couldn't get 35 million views. It would just require exposure after exposure after exposure. And by the way, what's the cost of launching a 3-minute and 30-second television commercial on YouTube? Just produce the commercial, that's it. The placement, oh, and additionally, it's talked about in every marketing class, in every MBA program in the United States in the last month. By the way, this just happened. Just happened 2 months ago. So now all of a sudden, when we're talking about this idea of engaging, what did Procter & Gamble do? They engaged people in this dialogue about stereotypes of little girls and young women and teenagers and why it's important to do this, why it's important to do that, and oh, by the way, we're a great company, we love this, we love girls, and we're selling this kind of a product. It was magnificent by anyone's standards. Now, if you're a Unilever or Revlon or any of the major companies that compete with Procter & Gamble, you're looking and you're saying, wait a minute, what the hell? We're producing Super Bowl ads, and we're buying full-page advertisements in magazines. We're on television all over the place, and they're doing something like this. As I said earlier this evening, it's a fundamental shift in the way companies engage customers. Now, a couple of words on retail internet sales. I'm preparing myself emotionally for my annual mother-in-law visit. It's coming up, and I'll be in Florida a week from Friday. She's like 125 years old. My wife's out there, I have to keep my voice down. But in any event, she will warn me when I see her, she will warn me for the 500th time, never buy anything online and never give anyone your social security number. It's much too dangerous. Now, there are fewer and fewer consumers like that. Because they're dying. I don't mean to be harsh and cruel here, but rather they're dying in terms of their behavior. They're recognizing that's the way people buy. The youngest group in here tonight are 22, 23 years old. You're the first digital natives in the history of the world. Everyone else is a digital immigrant. We're all digital immigrants. We came from a non-digital world. But the digital natives now, you've been doing this stuff from the very beginning. And now we see digital natives are 3 years old, and 4 years old, and 5 years old. So the digital natives look at online sales, and they look at it as a legitimate opportunity and the way to buy product. We're not going to stop these increases in online sales. It's going to continue to grow and grow and grow. Look at some of the numbers. In 2011,